Hey, everybody. Welcome to Council Sessions, one of our shows here on Inside the Force. And got a really special guest for this episode. Wanted to reach out to some other podcasters, Star Wars podcasters, particularly in the community, get them into the conversation. And one of my first reach outs was someone from Followers of the Force podcast, David Triana. How are you, David? Good to see you again, man.
Good to see you too, man. I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing really good. Can't believe how fast time goes. We were just talking how I was a guest on your show and I think you're still continuing to do the Star Wars Journeys, right? Great series.
Thank you.
Encourage everybody to go check that out. I was on the show back in June of 2019.
Yeah, crazy. Can't believe it's almost been 2 years now.
I know, right? How long have you been doing your podcast?
So we started this one. It originally started with me and my dad in early 2017. And then in the summer of 2018 was when I brought on Jason and Gwendy, and now it's Jason, myself, and like a crew of another 6 or 7 hosts.
Nice.
It's been really great.
Great. So on our show here, David, we, I know you've had me on the guest as I was with Inside the Force. Yeah. We wanted to kind of do some specific topic type discussions, and on council sessions here, we answer those burning questions that are lingering in the galaxy. Now, when we were texting back and forth this weekend, I'd asked you what topics are rolling around in your head, and you've got a great topic here. So I'll let you set this up. What are we going to answer in this episode?
Sure. So obviously, The Rise of Skywalker came out almost going to be 2 years now in December. We saw the culmination of a 9-episode saga, and by far one of the most interesting characters that we got to know in the sequel trilogy was Kylo Ren. And we all wanted to know how his story was going to finally end. And by the end of the movie, spoilers, if you haven't seen, I don't know why you're watching, but
yeah, exactly.
We know that he sacrifices himself to sort of bring Rey back, and in turn, he becomes one with the Force. Maybe we didn't see a Force Ghost, but we'll get to that later.
Right.
But then it makes you think about: does a character that has a very troubled past, either just the dark side or just a villain in every sense of the word, does their end always have to be a sacrifice, or can it be an atonement that they can live through? And we haven't seen that yet in Star Wars. And I always thought that would be an interesting way to go with it. And I guess we're just going to talk about what, the differences and maybe similarities about sacrifice versus atonement, and how that could work for someone turning from the dark side.
Well, then let me throw the question right back at you then, because I think you're right. I think with Kylo or Ben, and it's a little different. As we were talking through texting a little bit, when someone falls to the dark side, are they truly a different person? Right? Is Kylo Ren, is he no longer Ben Solo? And that's kind of what we've always been, I feel like, programmed to learn with Vader and Anakin,
right?
That it's not Anakin, it's Darth Vader, right? And so when he redeems himself at the end of Return of the Jedi, does he become Anakin again? And those mistakes and sins that he had committed, were those Vader's sins, right? So back at you as far as Kylo is if he were to survive, if he would have had survived after bringing Rey back, what could have been his atonement? What could he have paid in order to redeem himself in the eyes of other people?
Yeah. I was going to wait to make this comparison until later, but I feel like it's perfect to make now. For any of you Walking Dead fans out there, this would be a great, like when you look at Negan, when we first introduced to Negan, he has got all your beloved characters on their knees, and he's just playing with them. He's making you think, who's he going to kill? And then by the time we finally see what happens, he's killed 2 people. One of them, fan favorite, been there since the beginning, in Glenn. But then fast forward, spoilers if you haven't kept up with The Walking Dead, but he is a part of the group now, and he has saved them on a few occasions already. And now going into this season, it seems like, and there's that of him maybe trying to repair a relationship like with Maggie, and seeing that she's got, the baby's grown up, and he looks like Glenn. He's got the baseball cap on and everything. So when you look at that, and then you look at Ben, it's almost like his atonement to me would just be not feeling like anyone that doesn't quite understand where he's coming from is out to get him, if that makes any sense. Like in the Force Visions in The Last Jedi, when Rey calls him a monster, and then he's like, yes, I am. It's like he's trying to convince himself that the way that other people see him is the way that he truly is, which doesn't necessarily have to be the fact. It's just something that's continuously been reiterated in his head throughout his entire life. And then with Kylo Ren, you learn that a lot of the stuff that happened, it wasn't what he wanted. It wasn't his intention. It was like just a byproduct of stuff that he was going through, and then Snoke's manipulations, and like in The Rise of Skywalker, when Snoke is like, I've been every voice inside your head, and it was obviously Palpatine.
Right.
But it's like going into a real world aspect. It's like you're constantly hearing this stuff in your head. Like, dude, look at what you've done. This is all your stuff. And I think when you were talking about whether it's, Anakin's sins or Vader's sins, and now whether it's Kylo's or Ben's, I think they're 2 sides of the same coin, where it's not like another example in Return of the King, when King Theoden is sort of brought back from under Saruman's like manipulation. He doesn't know anything of what he did, whereas Anakin, and I would say Ben as well, I think they know full well what they did, and it was just whatever their motivations were, that's how they thought they could get to that goal. And then somebody over their shoulder saying, this is how you would do it, and not having that other side, or just not wanting to listen to that other side. So yeah, that would be the way I would look at it to start.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting assessment, because I think I'll go back to Vader, because I think Anakin, I think, I don't know, the difference between Vader and Kylo, I guess those are the 2 that we're kind of focusing on.
Yeah.
When Vader turned to the dark side, when Anakin turned, I think he truly felt like he was doing the right thing.
Right.
Like he felt the Jedi were evil and the Jedi were manipulating. So in things like that, in that situation, there was such chaos and lies and manipulation.
Yeah.
Those things I can get on board with, that somebody could repay, like when you're so manipulated. And Vader, in a sense, but it had to be, almost the death of his son to really trigger him back to say, okay, this is wrong. I got to take care of this. I don't know about that with Ben. We don't know Ben's turn fully. There's a couple of comics that are out there that kind of talk about it, but I don't know. I feel like he was just seeking more power. I don't know if he was. I mean, you could say he was manipulated, I guess. Would you just kind of hit it on?
Yeah.
But it seems like in the comics a little bit, the Rise of Kylo Ren, especially, there was always this. He felt like he was getting held back by Luke, and he wasn't getting, unleashing all of his power. The other kids were kind of against him a little bit. So it's like, I don't know. Was he seeking that? Did he want more power? And ultimately, he did what Vader never did. Was he killed Snoke and became the ultimate evil? Right. So, I don't know. Do you think they're too different in a sense?
I think the motivations are different for sure, but I think with Ben, and if somebody can correct me if I'm off base on this, but I think in the books, Ben his track was never to be a Jedi. That wasn't what he wanted to do. He wanted to be a pilot like Han. So I feel like it was kind of a destiny being thrust upon him rather than him being like, okay, I do want to do this. Don't just send me off with Luke, because that's what should happen. I think if he would have been left to like his own thing, his story might have ended up a lot differently.
True.
And in the rise of Kylo Ren, like what you said, with the students kind of being jealous of his power, and then Luke makes a statement of the Force being like a door that's cracked open. It's how much do you want to open it, and how much of that power you can tap into. But as far as like Ben seeking power, I don't know if that was always his ultimate goal, because I feel like he was very much of the mindset of if I make one wrong move, I kind of just have to stick with it, because it's like a slide. You go down and there's no way of going back up. And then he constantly says this thing and he says it in The Rise of Skywalker, when he breaks the Sith Wayfinder, he's like, now you can't go back home just like I can't.
Right.
And it's this constant thing of, you screwed up, now there's no way you can come back. And I think that's where the issue with sacrifice and atonement is, where it's sending this message of you can't come back from a bad past or mistakes or anything like that. Only death is the only way that you can. Yeah, and I think that's where Star Wars, I think right now, needs to do a little bit of a better job, sort of giving somebody that option of saying there is a way out, and it doesn't matter how far gone you are, but there's a way back. And I think with Vader, and I'll ask you this as well, right? He lived a long life. We saw him as Anakin. We saw him as the hero of the Republic. We saw him do all these amazing things. And with Ben Solo, we got maybe 10 minutes.
That's true.
Of Ben Solo.
That's true.
And the guy was 30 if you're trying to do age in Star Wars, which is always hard.
Yes.
But like, do you think Vader could have, like, what could his atonement have been if he would have stayed alive already, nearing 50 and what's his thing? Whereas Ben, he could teach kids, look what I did. You can come back from that.
What's interesting is I'm not a really big political person, and I don't really follow the law as far as like court trials and all that stuff. But I'll tell you what, it actually would have been very interesting, because I think if Vader had survived and Anakin would have been alive leaving that shuttle with Luke, I think you would have definitely seen which would have been very interesting. You would have seen some kind of, he would have been probably charged with war crimes.
Yeah.
And it would have been some big galactic court case, right? A trial, and the trial of Anakin Skywalker. I mean, I think, and for people that knew his past, because that's the thing too, is not many people knew that it was the same person, right? So you had Anakin, as far as everybody knew, that he died in the Clone Wars, and it would have been interesting for the galaxy. The hard part about him also is that at this point in the galaxy, everybody thought the Jedi were traitors, right? So you had to convince people that they were deceived. The whole galaxy was deceived. It would have been very interesting. I think he would have had to, unfortunately, unless you could make the case that he was manipulated, that he made these mistakes, but he redeemed them by truly overthrowing the Emperor and ending this conflict. He probably would have had to serve some time, I guess, or been locked up for a while. I don't know I think there's an argument there that you could that the galaxy was saved because of him. And it's like this is a weird analogy, but it's like the movie Armageddon, right? You send all these guys up to save the planet, and when they get back, if they survive, their whole record should be wiped out. Like they should, right. They're like the hero. You could never touch them again. So it's almost like that in a sense where, if it wasn't for Vader or Anakin, no one else would be. Everyone kind of owes them their debt. So I think there's definitely something there. I want to go back real fast to what you said, because I remind everybody that I love that what you said earlier, but about Vader and Kylo, because if I recall, both of them in the movies, one to Luke and one to Han, they both said, "It's too late for me." I think, right? Did they? Yeah.
Something to that effect. Yeah.
Yeah. It's too late for me. It's too late for me, son, or it's too late for me. I love that. But so that acknowledgement that what I've done is unforgivable. Right. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
But that you bring up a good point where, how does Star Wars do this? How do we get past the villain that becomes the hero ultimately has to die? I don't know. Is there have you thought of a way or a story or something in that effect that Lucasfilm and Star Wars can think about?
Yeah, so the only thing, maybe not the only thing, but the one thing that comes to mind every time that topic is brought up is honestly exile, but not an exile that has to stay that way. But if we're going back to Vader, like if Luke said, "All right, I'm taking you with me, and we're gonna go do this together this time," and then either time just has to heal those wounds, or the galaxy just has to get history right. And I right now I think that's the only way I see something like that happening. And in the case of Ben, it's almost like the galaxy didn't, I wonder if anyone even knew who he was aside from the Kylo Ren persona. Right. So, and I always, whenever this topic is brought up, I'm always like, I would have loved it if in The Rise of Skywalker, after he has that moment of reflection after the fight with Rey, after seeing Han and feeling Leia's death, if in that moment he looks for Finn and Poe and surrenders and is taken back to the Resistance, and right there is leading the Resistance on behalf of his mom, and then leading that fight with Rey. And right there, that's just a great moment.
Great redemption. That's a great redemption right there.
Or if you want to take it to The Last Jedi, you get his redemption in that movie, which we've never seen in a Star Wars movie, for the villain to be the villain we think to be redeemed in the middle chapter. And then at the end of The Last Jedi, you get you go to Exegol, you see Palpatine's alive, and then 9 is Ben, Rey, the Resistance going to Exegol and figuring that whole thing out. So
that's good.
There's a lot of ways you can do it, but I think the first time we'll see that kind of a story will probably be in a series. Just because I think people would want to see longevity in that, not just a post-credit scene or the last 15 minutes of a movie, and then hope that we get something later on.
Very true. Yeah.
So that's the way I would see them do it. But it's tough, and I know a lot of people maybe won't be on board with it just because we're so used to that sacrificial ending.
Yeah.
You know, like Tony Stark in Endgame. But even then, the guy had 12, 10, 11 years of movies. You're like, yeah, that's earned. He started the whole thing, and but yeah, I think Exile or in a show. I think that's where it'll come from.
Did you at the end of Rise of Skywalker? Where were you on? Did you think Ben was actually going to survive?
Oh man, I thought he was going to live up until the moment after the kiss. Then I saw the smile fade, and I was like, oh no, they're doing this again. Because I thought when he was reviving her, I thought we were going to see two hands on his shoulders, one being either Luke or Leia, and the other being Anakin. And then the price for that would be whoever helped him do that would just no longer be a Force ghost. They would just literally be one with the Force, and then their sort of purpose is over and has been completed. And then you get Ben still alive, and Anakin's whole mission in Revenge of the Sith, which is just save Padme, save the person you love, and he would have been able to do that.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I talked about my initial thought, but my actual initial thought was when Rey falls over and Ben comes over, my initial thought was actually, okay, so he's the rise of Skywalker. He is the Skywalker that is going to return. And actually we're Rey's dead. And I had this kind of thought, even though I didn't know we were going to have this discussion, long later, but like, I thought, gosh, how is the galaxy going to treat Ben Solo now? Like, this is actually going to be crazy. So, but as soon as he died, I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. That solves it pretty easily. I do want to bring up this because I did just think of this. How much do you know? Have you read Dark Disciple and Asajj Ventress' story?
So I know of her story. I haven't read the book yet.
Okay.
But I know her relationship with Quinlan Voss. I know of her turn and her unfortunate death later on. Yeah.
But, she, even though I wouldn't say, because I'm wondering about her character, because because of that book, she's become one of my top 5 characters.
Yeah.
And, she's her whole story is interesting. She trained as a Padawan, got let go by the Jedi Order, was a Night Sister, and then eventually got trained and became a dark Sith, not necessarily Sith, but a dark Sith loyalist in a sense. Yeah, dark assassin. Eventually, got betrayed by Dooku and went back to the Night Sisters, and then kind of became a bounty hunter, and wanted vengeance to kill Dooku, all this stuff. But she teamed up, found love with Quinlan Voss, like you said. So it's interesting that in the life of Asajj Ventress, even though she had committed these crimes or had these transgressions, in a sense, she wasn't necessarily captured and put on trial. And so I'm wondering, I don't think she was necessarily serving any kind of penance or anything like that. But I wonder if she, because I don't know, I don't recall her actually saying that she felt bad about anything she did. So I don't know. Do you feel like her story it falls into this conversation at all?
Yeah, I think so. There's a ton. There are tons of moments where, especially in the Clone Wars, when we see her having to team up with Obi-Wan for like an episode, or having to work with the Jedi in some sense, and then she goes and does her own thing again. I think her story is very much like that, and I think a direction that Star Wars can go, and they hinted at this in The Last Jedi as well, is the dark and the light can coexist and it can work together in a perfect way. And we saw that in the throne room sequence in The Last Jedi. Like, that was the perfect example of balance, because you had, and even in a previous episode we did, this was probably like probably 2019 or even 2018, when they're fighting and there's a moment like right at the beginning of that fight where Rey holds on to him and they almost form like this perfect yin yang kind of symbol, and it's like a perfect it's just a perfect example of it being able to work, and it doesn't have to be one side or the other. And I think with Asajj, it's kind of the closest you get to that. And Quinlan Vos on the opposite side is the closest you can get to being a Jedi and still being a little, gray, if you want to use that word.
Yep. Yeah. Because he does technically fall and then is redeemed in a sense, comes back because of her sacrifice.
Right.
Again, her sacrifice. I mean, in the end, she does die.
Yeah.
So this kind of goes back to the whole conversation that they can't live on after being redeemed. So, gosh, yeah. So in the end, she's kind of in the same category as Anakin and Ben. So, all right. So where we landed in a sense, because I think I agree with you. I think that the redemption part of Star Wars has technically been one-sided in a way. It's again interesting that you brought that up, because I've never actually really thought of it that way. I thought of redemption always meaning that especially for a dark side user, you have to sacrifice yourself in order to be redeemed in a sense, right? And I do love the fact that that this is that this should be a possibility, that someone can come back and actually live out their lives still. So maybe we will get that story. I mean, there's obviously stories going on now with the High Republic, and I think there's going to be some stories beyond Episode 9 at some point.
I think so.
So but so how about this as we wrap up here? Do you feel like this has to only apply to light and dark side users, or can it apply to any type of character that commits these kind of crimes?
Well, I think it can apply to any character, and as you were talking, I was thinking of Agent Kallus in Rebels, where he starts out really hardcore Imperial guy, and then realizes after he was on that planet with Zeb for a while, he comes back and he's like, dude, nobody even noticed I was gone. No one cared. I'm sitting in my room now, and like what is this for? And then by the end of it, he doesn't die. He's taken with Zeb and is told, hey, you didn't wipe everybody out. We're still alive and we're on another planet. So it's definitely possible. I hate that you have to go, it's like an animated series, and you have to like really look for it, and it's not something that's just right in front of your face. But yeah, I think it's totally possible, and I think it can apply to anyone. And and if it has to be somebody that's lived their life and wants to make that change right at the end, I think that should be part of it as well. What would Vader's life look, Anakin's life look like after? So.
Yeah, I think with Kallus too, that's interesting, because again, you could make the argument that he's following orders, right? He's doing what he's told to do, and he could feel bad, because I think you see that with Cassian Andor, right? He's tasked with doing all of these horrible things. You can see how much it weighs on him. As you go through the movie, and I think we'll understand that more as the series comes out on Disney Plus about him, because all those guys that sacrificed themselves for the rebellion by going to Scarif, like they all felt just horrible about some of the things they had done, assassins, and killers, and murderers, and that's interesting because Cassian apparently is a good guy, but he feels this, weight of guilt, and that is it's a fascinating. He's actually very fascinating, and I'm actually glad they're doing a series on him, because maybe that's what we can get to with him. As the series goes, we can kind of see. But unfortunately, it ends in a sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
So he may not be the best example, but maybe someone survives that in a sense. So
I hope so.
I think this has been. I think we can go forever on this topic.
Oh yeah. For sure.
This is actually something I'd love to bring. Maybe we could sit down on our actual show and dive into this a little bit more too, because this is a very interesting topic. So, David, thank you for joining me on this episode of Council Sessions. This has been fantastic.
Well, thank you, man, for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So we'll have David back. Followers of the Force podcast. That's with Tion. Go look at that. Go check that out on all your podcast feeds. You can follow him on Twitter at FOTF podcast. Of course, David's at DMT1196. Anything else you want to mention about it?
Nope. Just we got live show every Saturday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. New episodes every Monday. And we got some merch on TeePublic. You can get this Ben Solo shirt from the Rise of Skywalker, if I can show it real quick.
Yeah.
There you go.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
We got all that stuff going on. And if you guys want to check it out, I would really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, I'll put some links right here on the in the channel and
Awesome.
in the description, and go check all that out. Thanks everybody for joining us. Of course, subscribe to us on YouTube for more of Council Sessions and our other shows that we got going on. And we really, really appreciate everybody's support. David, talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.
Thanks everybody. Take care. May the Force be with you.